Hello students, today we are going to discuss short questions of motion and force. So let's start. What is the difference between uniform and variable velocity? From the explanation of variable velocity, define acceleration, give the SI units of velocity and acceleration. If a body covers equal displacement in equal intervals of time, then the velocity is said to be uniform velocity. If a body does not cover equal displacement in equal intervals of time, then the velocity is said to be variable velocity. The time rate of change of velocity is known as acceleration. Its formula can be given as, and SI units of velocity is meter per second, and SI unit of acceleration is meter per second or meter per second square. An object is thrown vertically upward. Discuss the sign of acceleration due to gravity relative to velocity while the object is in air. When an object is thrown vertically upward, the sign of gravitational acceleration relative to velocity will be negative. When an object comes downward, then the sign of gravitational acceleration relative to velocity will be positive. Can the velocity of an object reverse the direction when the acceleration is constant? If so, give an example. Yes, it is possible. When we throw an object vertically upward at maximum height, its final velocity becomes zero. After that, when it comes downward, velocity reverses, but the acceleration, that is gravitational acceleration, remains constant throughout the motion, which is 9.8 meter per second square. Explain the circumstances in which the velocity v and acceleration a of a car are parallel. If the velocity v of a car is increasing along a straight line, then the v and a are parallel to each other. Anti-parallel. If velocity v of the car is decreasing along a straight line, then v and a are anti-parallel to each other. Perpendicular to one another. If the car is moving along a circular path, then velocity and acceleration are perpendicular to each other. V is 0 but A is not 0. When sudden brakes are applied to a moving car, then V velocity of the car becomes 0 but acceleration does not 0. A is 0 but V is not 0. When a car is moving with uniform velocity, then velocity is not 0 but acceleration is equals to 0. Motion with constant velocity is a special case of motion with constant acceleration. Is this statement true? Discuss. Yes, this statement is true. When the object is moving with uniform velocity or constant velocity, then its acceleration is 0 and 0 is a constant number. Hence we can say that motion with constant velocity is a special case of motion with constant acceleration. Find the change in momentum for an object subjected to a given force for a given time and state the law of motion in terms of momentum. The relation between force and momentum can be given as and it can be stated as the rate of change of momentum is equals to force. Define impulse and show that how it is related to linear momentum. When a force F acts on a body for a very short interval of time, then product of force and time interval is known as impulse. And its relation with linear momentum can be given as state the law of conservation of linear momentum, pointing out the importance of an isolated system, explain why under certain conditions the law is useful even though the system is not completely isolated. Total linear momentum of an isolated system remains conserved. An isolated system is important because law of conservation of momentum is only applicable in isolated system. In our daily life, the frictional effect and gravitational effects are so small that they are negligible. That is why the law of conservation of linear momentum is still valid if the system is not completely isolated. Explain the difference between elastic and inelastic collision. Explain how would a bouncing ball behave in each case. Give the plausible reason for the fact that kinetic energy is conserved in most cases. A collision in which kinetic energy remains conserved is known as elastic collision. A collision in which kinetic energy does not remain conserved is known as inelastic collision. In elastic collision, the bouncing ball gets the same height and same velocity after impact. In inelastic collision, the bouncing ball does not get the same height and same velocity after impact. This is because most of its energy is used against the frictional forces and air resistance, but the total energy of the system remains conserved. Explain what is meant by projectile motion. Derive the expression for time of flight, range of projectile. Show that the range of projectile is maximum when the projectile is thrown at an angle of 45 degrees with the horizontal. Two-dimensional motion of an object under the action of gravity is known as a projectile motion, and the derivation for time of flight and the range of projectile is given as. At what point or points in its path does a projectile have its minimum speed, its maximum speed? The projectile has its minimum speed at maximum height, and the projectile has its maximum speed at the point of projection and just before hitting the ground.